Pretty swell the way the people of Midfield respond to all this.
You bet, Mr. Mayor. When it comes to firefighting, every grown-up is a kid at heart.
Yes, and we owe it to them to get after some of our fire hazards.
Hazards? What do you mean?
Well, Jim, not long before you took office last month, the National Board of Fire Underwriters made a complete survey of Midfield. Fire hazards, firefighting facilities, everything. They began with the water supply. It's right near the front of the report. Here. First, they looked over the reservoir. Next, they went out to see our pumping station, which supplies the reservoir and maintains water pressure in Midfield. Here, the water superintendent and one of the engineers from the fire underwriters made a thorough inspection. They checked the generators which furnish power to the wells. Then the pumps that keep the pressure up all over the city no matter how much water is being used, and pump the water out through the piping system that leads to the city mains and to the reservoir. They examined the gauges which show the vacuum, steam, and water pressures, and the meter which registers the flow of water. They checked the fire extinguishers and the hose, and because a fire at the pumping station would cut off the city's water supply, they looked for fire hazards. They found a bad one, too. The ceiling of that building is made of wood. But even more hazardous, they pointed out, we've got only 2 pumps to supply the whole city. You know, we use the full capacity of 1 pump all the time for ordinary needs. Looking further into that problem, they checked the fire hydrants in different parts of the town to make sure that our water pressure was strong enough. The hydrants tested okay, and the engineer felt sure that we have plenty of pressure there and adequate flow under normal conditions. But what if we had a big fire and one of those pumps broke down? We'd have no reserve power.
I'm glad you brought this up, Jack. You're a good insurance man with real concern for the city's welfare. But what about your department, Chief? Surely the underwriters couldn't find anything wrong there.
Well, they had some good things to say about the fire department, Mr. Mayor, and some that weren't so good. First thing we did, of course, was to inspect the alarm system. You know, the fire alarm building is set off by itself. The engineer noticed that right away. So there's no danger of it catching fire from some other building. But when we got inside, we showed the engineer what kind of equipment we have. Then we put on a demonstration of the way an alarm comes in. We had one of the men pull a firebox so we could see how all that machinery works. How the automatic register tape gives the operator the location of the fire. How he sets it up on the transmitter, which sends the alarm out to the nearest fire station. Then we went over to headquarters. Here we looked at the aerial ladder truck and the pumpers. Well, I guess I don't have to tell you what pried them in taking all their equipment. So naturally, the engineer didn't find anything wrong. Just the same, to make sure that everything was in order, we checked up on some of the routine pieces, such as special hose connections, hand lanterns, heavy-duty rubber gloves, and that new fog nozzle that we found so good in fighting an oil blaze. Then we had an alarm demonstration. Well, in 1 minute flat, they were out on the street for the apparatus. After that, we took the pumpers up to Sandy Creek for a draft test to try them out by taking suction from the stream. The new one lifted water in good time. The pump pressure and motor speed were satisfactory. So we went over to check the discharge at the nozzle. A pit-hole reading showed it delivered the full rated capacity. The old one didn't quite measure up to required quantities and pressures. But we've taken care of that, of course. And now we keep our pumpers in condition by making regular tests ourselves. We give strict civil service exams to all our new men. And we're starting a regular schedule of frequent drills, just as the Underwriters recommend, now that we got a suitable location. The result will be good men who know their jobs, men who know how to handle themselves not only on the ground, but aloft, on the aerial ladders, on the pompier ladders. And they'll know how to handle whatever equipment they need. Regular hours of training based on regular study of the Underwriters training bulletins, and those boys should be ready for any emergency. Plenty of practice on each other will give them steady nerves when they actually have to get someone out of a tight spot. Rookies, as well as old-timers, will know what it feels like to carry a man down a ladder, for instance, and doing it often will give them the confidence they need when they come up against the real thing. And of course, every man is getting a thorough training in first aid. They have to be prepared to haul hose into a smoke-filled basement or over a rooftop. And any fear of height they have will soon disappear with practice. But even so, it's always wise to know how to get down in a hurry, safely. Yes, the interest of each one of these men shows he's got the stuff it takes to be a fireman. But on the way back, when we saw all the building going on around the new factory, the engineer insisted that we need a new fire station out at that end of town.
That's right. And the city council ought to require safer construction by making the Fire Underwriters Model Building Code a law right now.
And you know, Mr. Mayor, so many new risks come up all the time. Bigger crowds assemble. The department is handicapped by not having an up-to-date fire prevention ordinance like this one.
Yes, Jim. If we don't give the fire department the authority to correct dangerous conditions, here's what we're risking. Here's the area of serious conflagration hazard in midfield.
Someday that whole section might go up in flames.
Changes like these will cost money, Jack. Public money. A lot of people are going to wonder what the insurance business is getting out of this thing.
Well, everybody benefits, whether they carry insurance or not. But let's look at the record. The policyholder pays an average of 67 cents today for the same protection that used to cost him $1.17. That's not accidental. That's how much fire prevention measures have lowered the cost to the public of fire insurance in the last 35 years.
Okay, boys. You've sold me. I want the chief of the water department, the building inspector, and the head of the city council. Ask them to come over here right away. Well, Jack, we're going to make Midfield the best protected town in the country. We're going to make history with this fire prevention campaign. We'll do our own pioneering.